Movie Wars.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Movie Wars podcast. My name is Kyle. I'm so glad to be back with you, and I feel like a little worm on a big fucking hook. I'm Kyle.
Okay.
I'm Seth.
And I'm Drew.
I'm so excited. Movie Wars fans, as you know, we had to take a little break. I know you missed Drew and Phil. Drew's going to come back eventually and do a couple things later in the year. They got busy, though, and so I had to retool the format, and I was so lucky. I opened up the forum, and two of my great comedian buddies who are also movie fanatics in and of themselves, not just from an industry perspective, but you have your own movie podcast, Drew.
Yeah.
I don't want to take up their clout. I want you to introduce yourself. Tell people who you are and what you do there, Seth.
Hey, I'm Seth Kays. I actually, in addition to being a comedian, I'm also a filmmaker as well. I've made music videos, short films. I've worked on feature films and TV shows. So loving movies is not just a passion. It's also an attempt at being an actual career for me. So I'm real excited to get this going.
Love it. Drew.
I'm I guess you guys can call me Drew 2.0 because I'm another Drew Davis. I'm also a comedian. I produce shows. I have a brand that just does a lot of comedy and working with comedians called Quarter Mile Entertainment. I also have another podcast called the Quarter Mile Podcast, which is more really into Fast and Furious. We're finishing up our season 1 right now with Fast and Furious, and then we haven't told people what we're doing for season 2 yet. But I won't. You'll have to go check that one out soon when it. But I'm also a big fan of movies. I think what I bring to the table here or to the living room is
We got a table.
yeah, there is. So what I bring to this
Beautiful
table
table.
right here is both Kyle and Seth are guys that know stuff and have educated reasons for how they feel about whatever movies they watch. And I love that. I'm just a guy that likes movies. If I have a good time with it, then it's a good movie. So I'm excited. Do they know about the series that we're about to go into?
Yeah, well, they are. Some of them are listening to the Mad Max series.
Yeah.
So we haven't really had a chance to preface them on the Crow series.
Yeah,
but-
so we're in The Crow, and this was my first time watching The Crow, and this will be my first time every episode watching the movies, and I just enjoy watching stuff, and you know, these guys will give you good context on important things. I'll just give my opinions on things, and it'll be great.
Yeah. I love it. And I can't say enough good things about the Quarter Mile podcast. When you and I first met, you told me you had a podcast only dedicated to the Fast and Furious. I was like, seems like a smart guy. I've seen him do stand up. I know he's hilarious. But I was like, I got to hear this you keep the feather in the air really well.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
You like to focus on one franchise, so like it seems like it would be dangerous, but you navigate it so well. It's entertaining, it's funny, so it's truly an honor to have you here, bringing that to the.
Thank you so much. And it's weird. It was weird watching a not Fast and Furious movie. Like I was like, what does this need? This movie needs more Vin Diesel. When's he coming out to?
We
You know?
need more family.
And the best thing you do is you've managed, even in the past week, like we had a show together last week, and you managed to reference your brand, because that's not just your podcast. You drop the title of it in random sentences where you're talking like, I just lived my life a quarter mile. I was like, I don't have anything like that in my life where I can just be like, I just movie wars at one movie wars at a time. I don't have that,
Right.
you know?
We'll work on that. We'll workshop it. We'll start
Yeah.
finding some movie wars related. I don't know.
Yeah. Love it. Well, as Drew hinted at, we are diving into The Crow. And if you've been listening to Movie Wars for a while, I've begged for years to do The Crow because it is in my top 50, and it's one of those movies from childhood that just has stayed with me all these years. My passion to do it was invigorated recently. Well, not recently, actually, when I first heard that they were going to redo The Crow. And a lot of fans, and I didn't realize, I thought it was just me that clung to this film, but a lot of people
Oh, yeah.
out there were upset.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard so many interesting things about the new one.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
not many good.
I was gonna say I've heard nothing good.
Yeah.
Like there's not a. I'm gonna feel bad if I come when we do that and you guys are like, this is the worst one, and I'm like, I kind of enjoyed it. Like I'll feel like I'll feel like a terrible person.
Yeah. I'm saving my viewing just for the podcast. I knew I wanted to save it. I didn't want to like have any
Yeah.
stain in terms of watching it. And I think people are mad because a lot of people say, well, they've done a bunch of other ones, like, but they didn't tackle Eric Draven.
Yeah.
All the other characters, it's not Shelley anymore. Like Sarah they kept around, but Sarah her actress didn't die
Yeah.
on set. It wasn't the daughter of a legend. Like
right.
even Ernie Hudson came out, who I love, came out and said, this is Brandon's movie, and
Yeah.
we can't. And so a lot of people, even from the crew, if Michael Massey were here today, I know he would be upset. Unfortunately, he died in
Oh, sure.
2016.
Yeah.
Oh, bummer.
Yeah.
R.I.P.
Yeah, and he, and he didn't act for a long time after the accident. We'll get to it later.
Yeah. Well, I actually have a special connection to The Crow, the original one, because when I went and got my first tattoo, which is the bat signal on the inside of my arm here, that was the movie that the tattoo artist decided to play while I was getting my tattoo.
Wow.
So yeah, I was sitting there laying on the table with all sorts of needles going into my arm watching this movie, just like, wow, this is crazy.
You were
I love
watching
that.
The Crow as you were getting Batman tattooed on you,
literally.
so.
Two
It would have been so weird if you were like, this movie's so good, switch it up.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
like change
You know
it.
what?
Yeah.
Turn the back signal into a crow, like
Yeah.
I'm done.
More like Bruce Lame. Let's get out of that.
Right.
Yeah. And so it was really interesting to hear that I wasn't alone. And so, I felt supported in that way. And I was like, wow, a lot of people were like me and loved this film. I'm reading Reddit and Twitter, and people all over the place and I'm like, okay, maybe I'm not a weirdo.
That's the jury's still out on that one.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm a weirdo. Just
I was-
not-
I was
this is
like,
my
yeah,
one-
For that
yeah.
reason.
This is my one normalcy.
Yeah. I was like, I'm not gonna go that far,
Yeah. Yeah. You're like,
but sure.
We all try to make people laugh for a living. We're all weirdos.
yeah, we have affirmation issues that run very deep, deeper beyond the Crow.
Oh yeah.
So like and subscribe to make us feel like we matter in the world.
Exactly.
Give us purpose.
Yeah. So, and so this gave me an excuse to finally to dive into the series. There's so much about the movie. One thing I love is that as someone that grew up in turmoil and craziness, James O'Barr, who wrote the original comic, wrote this. He was an amazing artist, but he did horrible in school. He talks about how he had surpassed all of his art teachers, and he was an orphan, and he didn't get adopted until he was 7 years old, and he was kicked around from foster family to foster family, and so his art was how he coped. And he started writing The Crow and illustrating The Crow when he finally found this woman. He was in an incredible relationship, and he talks about how if he was dark, she was light, and she was incredible, and they were engaged for 3 years, and she was the best thing that ever happened to him in his very dark life, and she died. She got hit by a drunk driver.
Man.
Oh damn.
And so this story was birthed from that, and he talks about this was his coping mechanism. Never did he write it thinking it would become this thing that literally stuck with people
Yeah.
Right.
for decades.
I mean, here we are 30 years later and we're talking about this.
And I couldn't wait. I couldn't wait to watch it for the 100th time.
Yeah.
I was just like, I get to watch The Crow again.
Yeah.
And so he's a very interesting guy. So I love that aspect of it. There's another aspect of this film, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. I moved to Nashville originally as a musician. Music's very important to me. And the soundtrack, and again,
So good.
yeah, I'm not alone here. And you're in film, like you make films.
Yeah.
I would love to hear your perspective, because I know for a fact that not every director or anybody involved in a film goes in thinking this is the soundtrack. Typically,
Yeah.
that's a post effort. There are moments in this, specifically the Nine Inch Nails cover of the Dead Souls, where he's jumping from rooftop to rooftop. It's
Yeah.
so rhythmically aligned and perfect that I'm thinking that was premeditated.
Almost definitely. See, because this is the thing. Some directors, the music is definitely an afterthought, but I've especially noticed a trend recently where so many directors actually go into the script hearing the soundtrack, and a lot of times you'll actually see songs be put into the script, or either it'll say this song needs to play or something like this song should be played. James Gunn is actually, I feel like, kind of the one who's spearheaded that recently, because when he started doing Guardians of the Galaxy, like, he had that full 70s soundtrack in his head, and that was kind of what drove a lot of the stylistic choices that he made with that movie.
Yeah.
And it continued over the next two.
I mean, it makes so much sense because music helps you feel things like
Yeah.
tones of everything, tones of certain styles. I mean,
Yeah.
music draws out emotions and connections. And so it really can take a good movie and make it great having a soundtrack when they have intentional music going into.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And we noticed that with The Crow. Like, I mean,
Mhm.
the songs fit. I even remember
So well.
I was like when I was watching the movie, I had like a Facebook status that I made, and I was making like my commentary, and one of my comments was like, "This movie probably has an awesome soundtrack." And then sure enough, someone was like, "It does," and here it is.
It's
And
one of the best.
and I love it because I mean that just really connects with you when you're watching it. You don't realize that how you feel about whatever's going on in the movie is being elevated and amplified by whatever song or track or instrumental's going on. So
such wonderful points, and it's crazy how visual it is and how visceral, because I hear those songs. I now listen to them regularly. I have for a long time. And I visualize the movie scene it's in. I actually have like Golgotha Testament blues when Fun Boy shoots, Draven through the hand.
Yeah.
That song, like I woke up this morning, that was the first song I thought of. Like it's just,
that's completely normal.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, not a weirdo. Not a weirdo.
Yeah. On this.
Yeah. And Big Empty, of course, I grew up I grew up during the era of, Seattle music. I don't call it grunge because they hated the word grunge.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I don't call it that either. But, my favorite band of all time is Alice in Chains.
Nice.
I liked Stone Temple Pilots. Like I wasn't super deep into their stuff, but then I heard Big Empty in this song. And I was like, what is that?
Yeah.
And I found out, and now like I've, at this stage of my life, I've bought every STP on at least some on cassette, CD. Then I bought them digitally, and now I've bought them all on vinyl. Like
Nice.
Nice.
Scott Weiland, rest easy, buddy. Because
Seriously, and Chester Bennington took over for an album after that.
Yep.
Yeah, it's the history of that band is insane.
I love that you heard one song in The Crow and then you developed and then you got like a favorite band out of it.
I did.
That's so cool.
I
Like,
did. Well, that song is, as a musician, it's just the Stone Temple Pilots were so interesting because they were, two of them, the founding members that were also the main composers, the DeLeo brothers, were jazz musicians, but they had this rock. So they did all this, and that sleazy bass line, and they could do that. It's just such a like 3 a.m. dive bar bass line.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And it matches T-Bird perfectly.
Yeah.
absolutely.
So well.
The music and just the whole style of the movie was so fun because it was like all this like 90s nostalgia. You know, like it'd been a while since I watched like a good 90s movie.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
one thing I liked about the movie, and you saw this more in older movies, was because now in any movies that we watch today that's modern, I feel like they have to give you a lot of exposition. Like, this is what's happening right now. This is the backstory.
Yes.
Here is
But,
the world.
But in this movie, like, you went into it, at least I went into it knowing nothing about anyone.
Yeah.
And there were times where I was like, what's going on? And nobody was telling me. Where's the exposition guy? There wasn't. And then you would learn as the movie was going on the plot instead of it being told to you kind of in the end. So it was interesting because I feel like I've gotten used to like them just telling me what I need to know and like actually having to figure it out.
Yeah.
Wow, but I ended up enjoying it,
It's such a great point, and what you're pointing out is something that Alex Proyas, the director, pointed out on the commentary. They were afraid with how simple that it was. They were like, the plot is too simple, and like it's not complex enough, and people are going to think this is boring. But he said all the gaps were filled in by Brandon Lee's performance.
Oh,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Everything he did, from the method acting to how he owned the character. He said any concern we had about this being too simplistic was filled in by his performance.
He provided so much depth to that role that like you were saying, that you didn't have any background on anything. You literally start the movie and he's dead, and you don't know anything about who he was before all this happened. But the moment he comes out of that grave, you could just see on his face that he has fully embodied this character.
Yeah, it was fun because I kept feeling like, did I miss something? Like, am I supposed to know something? But it was okay. And then what they did really well, and maybe it wasn't intentional, but like, and maybe it was. I was about to have a complaint about the movie where I was like, okay, is he just invincible the whole time? And because like to me that like took away like all tension in any of the fights. It's like, oh well, of course he's gonna win. And right when I started kind of getting annoyed that there wasn't like a kryptonite or there wasn't like a something,
Yeah.
Boom.
that was when they brought in like with the crow and the feather and the Asian lady. So and like when I was watching, it was right when I started being like, okay, if this is the way the movie is, then I'm gonna get bored real quick. It was right when I had that thought. That it's like they knew in making the movie, they were like, we're gonna have to put the tension in at some point, and they picked a really good time for it.
Yeah.
So
It's a great point. And originally what they were going to do was he was supposed to, every time he helped a human, because he was there solely as a member of the dead to justify the one thing that happened to him, and he was going to get back out.
Yeah.
So the original method was that every time he helped a living person that didn't justify his cause, he was going to lose levels of invincibility.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
I almost wish I wish they would have kept that, because that would have added like a different. It would have literally humanized him, but like also like him having to choose: do I keep my invincibility that will help my mission, or do I help this person in need? And of course, watching the good guy help people in need, it makes you care for them more.
But at the same time, I feel like it would have ended up doing what you were talking about earlier, how it would have had to make them tell why this is happening. I feel like it would have been very difficult to just show that that's a thing.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like there would have had to been like 2 minutes where someone's like, oh, well, he's helping this person and now he's weaker. Like, we have to explain this to the audience.
Yeah.
I feel like the way that they did end up doing it, because like honestly, one of my favorite moments was when he like touches Darla and the morphine comes out of her scars. That was such a cool moment.
Powerful.
And I feel like that would have been totally ruined if he sat there and was just like, oh no, now I'm weaker.
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Well, and you're right. And what you're hitting on is why they actually got rid of it, was because it was in the comic, it was attached to this character called the Skull Cowboy. And the Skull Cowboy was almost this arbiter type ghostly character that would tell Draven that these things were happening. And it was almost like he was his tour guide. Like the Crow was pretty much given distinguished responsibility for being his usher through the world. But the Skull Cowboy was supposed to be like almost just purely informative person, or this informative character that tells him. But the reason it didn't do it was, first of all, exactly what you said. His only purpose was to tell Brandon, you're getting weaker.
Which works in comic form, would not
Yes.
have worked so well in film form.
And the costume, they couldn't nail it. They said they just couldn't get it to not. It looks great in the comics, but they could not nail it, and it just looked cheesy. Brandon hated it, Alex hated it, so they just had to get rid of it.
I kind of get that, and like just the idea of like all this like 90s grunge. Not to.
How dare you?
90s Seattle.
90s Seattle vibes, and then look, there's a cowboy.
Yeah, a skull cowboy
would have been very weird.
Right.
And how many skull characters have we had in comic book universe? We've had the Red Skull,
Yeah.
Ghost Rider.
Ghost Rider. Enough with the skulls already. You put a cowboy hat on it. That's supposed to be better. Like, we see what you're doing.
Yeah.
You're commandeering the whole skull thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think the way that they ended up doing it just genuinely served the movie to its best potential.
And it helped me too, because like the whole time I'm like, what is with this crow? Like
Yeah.
no one does nobody notice? Like there's just this like people are like, oh hey, what's the deal with your crow? Right? No one ever asked. And then finally and honestly, like I the Asian lady kind of snuck up on me, because you know we see from the main villain, he's just got all these women he's getting with. So I thought she was just like another prostitute or whatever. And then she like has something of substance to offer. And that sounds mean. I shouldn't have said it just like that. But because you know sex workers have substance to offer anyway. But and then she's like, just how she just knew. She's like, oh yeah, if we mess with a crow, that'll. I mean,
Yeah.
That and the quasi incest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the eyeballs.
Yeah. Yeah. They love burning eyeballs.
This is your sister? Yes, my father's daughter.
okay.
All right. I guess you have a really raspy voice, so you can say whatever you want, I guess.
I
Yeah.
just want to know, was her mom Asian or was their dad Asian?
Yeah.
Like, what was going on?
And her
with
name
that?
is Micah.
Yeah.
And it's spelled weird. It's like Weird Micah. So.
Right.
And the last thing I'll put around it, I think one thing, the reason this movie had so much staying power is it's not to discredit the tragedy, but the tragedy itself wrapped around the movie. Their decision to go forward with the movie was to honor Brandon.
Right.
The production company didn't want to go through with it, but they said they were looking at the film and like, Brandon did such excellent work here.
Yeah.
He
He'd
would
be ashamed to just throw it away.
He would want it. And I think honestly that stamp put a stamp on it. It's like, and the fact that he's Bruce Lee's son and Bruce Lee died under mysterious circumstances.
Yeah.
There's a lot to that. So I'm glad they came out with the movie. Obviously had a huge impact on me, had a huge impact on a lot of people. And I'm so glad that we're going to dive into it today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same.
Absolutely.
All right, let's go to the questions here. So for longtime Movie Wars fans, you remember the scorecard back in the day when it was 2 movies. A lot of humor was built in. Now that we're doing 1 movie at a time, these interview questions are now written to kind of help, both instigate good conversation, but also because we're comedians. I just thought it would be hilarious to hear you guys respond to some of these.
Yeah.
So we'll call this the questions. Which death in the film would you want to experience the least? Seth, we'll start with you.
Oh, the knives, honestly. That just because the thing with knives is you don't die quickly. It is going, and even if you're stabbed a bunch of times, it's going to take some time. And that would just be so horrific. So yeah, knives, death by knives. No, thank you.
And I read something after the movie that like apparently when he was stabbing him in like alphabetical order of like the
organs.
Organs. It's like, like I mean I get that he's got a lot of new supernatural abilities, but he probably had to think for a minute, like, okay, next I have to hold on a second, you know, and like so while
where's
you're
the kidney? Where's the spleen?
So
I skipped H.
sorry, we got to start over.
How
The
could I
most
skip?
important one, the heart.
How could I skip H? Aorta.
Yeah, so yeah, that would be a
Brutal.
The car.
Yeah.
That was my favorite scene. Like that was my favorite kill to watch.
Yeah.
But just the fact that it started with him putting like a grenade in his balls, I feel like that's a tough start. That's tough. I mean, you're wanting death a lot sooner than you get it. And like the dude's screaming the whole time, like he's aware of it. Like,
Oh yeah.
There's no coming back. There's no coming back.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
no, that
I feel that one.
I would not want to feel that one. I
No.
would be okay. Just, you know.
Yeah.
Anytime I see in a movie or a video or whatever anything having to do with the balls, I feel it personally.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
I literally feel my entire body just go, ugh.
Yeah.
But did anyone
tensing.
else when they were watching that scene? Because like favorite, like it was just a cool. I mean, it did give me kind of Fast and Furious vibes. It's like this is. I'm like I expected the Fast and Furious family to come out and be like, all right, we got you. We'll help you. No one did. But at the end when
We're family.
The car ends up in space.
when he like lit the match and it made the crow on the ground, did anyone else wonder like when did you have the time?
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's
set
the
that
complaint
up.
about Dark Knight Rises is that he had the time to make a gigantic bat on the bridge out of gasoline. So
Maybe he
same
had like
thing.
maybe his crow was doing that. While
Yeah. The crow pisses gasoline.
The little girl, he'd sometime talk to her. He was like, "Hey, this is kind of weird, but it'll set up for a really cool moment after I murder someone."
Hey, you're good at art, right?
They did that in one take too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they found like a hyper. It wasn't gas, but it was like they found something really flammable. It was like
Yeah.
a mixture. It was like a movie, like polyurethane.
Oh,
mixture.
yeah.
And they
Napalm.
nailed it the first time.
Yeah, I mean, it looks so cool.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree on the car one, but for different reasons. This is gonna be really stupid, but just the idea of dying with stickiness on my face. Like
Okay.
I don't like glue. I don't like
okay.
sticky things. I eat pizza with a fork. I don't like
Oh.
just stuff that
Yeah.
shouldn't be on my body. So yes, I know there's a grenade on my balls, but like if I do survive this, my eyebrow hairs are coming out.
Yeah.
And this is gonna hurt. This is worse than a Band-Aid. I just don't want tape on my skin.
Absolutely.
So
Understandable.
Yeah, the explosions in the river, that's all secondary.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not even thinking about the bad things I did that it killed me for because I got duct tape on me and that's gross.
Yeah.
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 That's really all. That's all he would do to you. He wouldn't even
Yeah.
kill you. He would just leave all the duct tape on your face,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
go, and then he'd go like make the crow with the gas.
It wouldn't take much. Like one strand of tape on the head and I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm just like that's Chinese water torture.
What's interesting is all
Kill
the
me
all
now.
all the deaths had some relation to the wrong that the person did
Yeah.
to them.
Yeah.
So like, what wrong would you have had to do to Brandon Lee for him to be like, I'm just gonna put a bunch of sticky notes on his head?
Yeah. Were you a forgetful son of a bitch?
Oh, you forgot to warn me? Well, I'll make sure that you never forget anything ever again.
The sticky note version of Memento.
A sticky note would remind you that lunch was at 12:30, not 12:45. Bitch. All right, this is awesome. So this is it's pre MCU, right?
Yeah.
Comic book craze hadn't caught on. You know, just remembering the time anecdotally, Burton's Batman was kind of the best popular representation we
Yeah.
had. There was a Captain America.
There was the Hulk TV show.
Yeah.
We had the Superman movies, but there
Yeah.
wasn't any type of craze like there is now. Yeah.
Yeah,
Was this before or after Burton's Batman?
After.
After. Okay.
That was
think-
89.
2 had come out,
yeah.
and it was the year before Forever.
I
Val
think so.
Kilmer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so my question to you is, given the fact that it wasn't yet as popular as it is today, which obviously it's been keeping theaters open for a
Yeah.
while,
Yeah.
what do you think of this early iteration? Because the way that the director describes this is it's an anti-comic book movie.
Yeah. See, so the thing that I found very interesting visually, and I've noticed this kind of trend throughout older comic book movies in general. I loved their use of miniatures to create the city. The city didn't feel like a single other city that I've ever seen in the world. It literally felt like its own character. And I don't ever see that anymore. I think Burton did a really good job in Batman 89 doing that same thing, but this took it to a whole other level where they physically created this whole new world that no one had ever experienced. So it felt like the buildings even just became a character, and the surroundings was its own character. And I just feel like you don't see that anymore.
Yeah.
I absolutely loved the look of it. It really felt like you were watching a comic book.
Yeah.
So and I just like with the Tim Burton Batmans, where like it had that same kind of larger than life appeal, kind of the dark grittiness of it, which I absolutely loved. It's interesting. I think that kind of movie, like nowadays, with a lot of the superheroes movies and TV shows are more today, or more kind of like anti-heroes, or like there's a big push on like the plot where the superheroes are actually the bad guys, and so it's a lot darker. And so I think nowadays with like movies like the Batman and stuff like that, is like the current like newer superhero movies nowadays, this movie would people would be cool with it. They would be with the dark vibe. But I feel like when you think about like early MCU phases, like when Iron Man 1 came out, when like Captain America, the
World War II one.
Yes, that one comes out. We might have not been ready for, or we might have not as been into this dark, gritty style, because there was a while with superhero movies where we liked the brightness, we liked the colorfulness, we liked the hopefulness. The idea of your hero is just going around killing a bunch of people, and the plot is he's just getting jokes. Revenge, like that. So that would do good now, but I would almost say like 15 years ago, people would have been like, I didn't think it was that great of a movie or whatever. Like, and so that was kind of interesting to me, but I don't know, it's fun. Since you know you're not going to go out and do all those murders, I feel totally okay being like, no, good for him.
Yeah, good. Justified.
Like, never once when I watched any of those bad guys get murdered did I wonder if they have like a family or like a concerned mom.
I hope T-Bird didn't have custody of his daughter this weekend.
But like we allow ourselves.
Skank is someone's uncle. He's the really weird uncle.
Yeah. I will say, comparing The Crow to especially like the Nolan Batman movies, because especially since Dark Knight and Iron Man came out in the same year, and to your point, even the Dark Knight, as dark as it was still a very brightly colored film. Like it didn't hit the dark points that like the Pattinson Batman did, or even The Crow did. Like I very much appreciated how deeply they leaned into the noir aspect of the way that they shot everything.
I kind of like that. I have to be in certain moods with depending on it. But like, I mean, life isn't just all bright and sunshine all the time. Sometimes you want to watch a movie in a gritty setting with like, all the what we saw in The Crow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And all the gruesome deaths and someone getting like eight things of heroin jabbed in them.
Yeah.
It's a great movie. I loved the emo vibes they had. I felt like this whole movie was going to lead up into the newest My Chemical Romance song. I was waiting for it to turn into a music video. My biggest regret was that he didn't do more with the electric guitar. I was
genuinely expecting him to stab that dude in the face when he came in with the electric guitar.
You could stab someone with the electric guitar. You could take the guitar strings off and strangle someone with it. You could play something so loud on an awesome amp, like next to the person, and bust their head off. It's a superhero movie. He could get supernatural sound wave powers, and I'm just saying.
Have you been thinking of ways of how to kill people with guitars?
Just with a guitar, yes, a guitar. Honestly,
I'm gonna get you with this git fiddle.
Y'all got to check out Drew's bit about his guitar days.
Yeah,
that's a great bit.
I love. Yeah, that's an underrated instrument. Not enough people have been killed by guitars or electric guitars, and I really thought The Crow was gonna help me out on this one. And we'll keep looking. We'll keep looking for movies where people die via electric guitars.
I will say the first time I saw a WWE event in person, Hardy smashed an acoustic guitar over the back of one of the wrestlers. So that's the closest I've gotten to seeing someone genuinely killed by a guitar.
One of the best when I was in a band and we would travel around, play at a bunch of different church camps, because that's how punk rock we were.
There we go.
And there was one camp one time where like the speaker was like, Drew, we're gonna buy you a guitar from Walmart, and part of the skit is we want you to break it on stage. It was leading to his message, and when I say that was the best moment of my life, I'm not exaggerating.
Oh my
I
God.
don't
It was-
blame you. 'Cause
it
that
was
sounds exhilarating.
So cool. It was like this. I didn't know it, but that's what I was made for. Like I was like this, which is really weird though when you go home and like your parents are like, "How was church camp?" and you're like, "I got to break a guitar."
For Jesus.
Right?
He loved it.
They're like,
Great shit for
"We're
Jesus."
moving."
He broke the table, I broke the guitar.
Yeah.
What else do you want from me? This is my defiant phase. Fantastic answers. All right, last interview question here. Why are leathers such an essential, instinctual vigilante clothing choice? Because I'm covering Mad Max with comedian Matthew Blevins. A lot of leathers over there, too.
yeah.
What's with leathers?
I mean, it was the 90s. Like, leather was in. I mean, you watch that episode of Friends, and Ross is like, I got leather pants. Like, I don't know why. Because, I mean, The Matrix did it. Blade did it. Underworld did it. Resident Evil did it. Like, it seemed like leather was just the choice for the 90s. And maybe it was like the rave scene that really was like influencing all of that. Because I know, especially in like Germany, like that was the thing. When you go to a rave, everybody's wearing nothing but leather,
Yeah.
which I don't understand because I feel like you would be sweaty as hell doing that.
Yeah. Sticky.
I
Yeah.
think it's pretty obvious, honestly. You have to look cool when you're doing all this vigilante stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Like it does not have the same effect when the one survivor goes back and retells about this crazy, gruesome car killing scene he saw the Crow do, and he's like, and then he got out of the car and I noticed he had a pink bathrobe. Like it's
Red
just
cowboy boots.
yeah, people are like, what? No, but like the fact that you're doing it in all this like really shiny, cool, slick leather, people are like, if the car didn't kill me, if the sword didn't kill me, then the sense of style would. Yeah, it's if they're not wearing cool clothes, then it's not a cool story to tell.
Yeah. Cotton Dockers just aren't,
Yeah.
you know, murderous enough.
You
Imagine
gotta
him
have
jumping
Dog
from-
Martens.
I don't want my murderer to kill me in shorts and like sandals, right?
Yeah.
Like I need
That's so much more embarrassing.
Like, imagine being 10-10, getting stabbed in your work and be like, is that a Van Heusen? You know?
Yeah.
and it's a more humane way of doing things for the vigilante.
It is.
Yeah.
Like, at least I know what this person's trying to do. Like, they're not trying to sell me like a pyramid scheme for energy drinks
Yeah.
in the Kroger aisle. Like, they're gonna kill me. Like, that's what
Granted,
they're
they
gonna
open that coat, they might be trying to sell you a watch. You just never know.
True.
Right.
All right, before we get to the randos, I just want to say as a reminder, the best way to help Movie Wars is to share with a friend. It's not hard. It's not. It may seem simple, but it's literally the best way to grow. You post it every single, Spotify, Apple. They all have that share button. You can put it on your Instagram stories. You can text it to your grandma. We are great with the grandmas. If your grandma's struggling,
Grandmas love us.
yeah.
Absolutely.
If she's struggling with age, show her the Crow episode.
Yeah.
and she will love you forever.
100%.
It's actually not enough people know this fact, but every time you share this video, a kitten somewhere doesn't get drowned.
It's true.
Mhm. Yeah,
It's very true.
and a
Yeah.
grandma goes on a killing spree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every time we show it.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, absolutely.
It's
That's
a
what we really
win-win.
want to see.
I don't want to lose money on this. Oh, and now for a fan favorite, our friends love the randos. I love that we call them randos because it's random, but we call them randos.
Oh, wow, look at that, man.
Kind of sounds like Rambo.
Oh.
Yeah. Although on social media, when I first started our TikTok account, I would say randos during, and it pissed people off. I got death threats. Like, why are you saying randos? You should die.
That seems like such an escalation
It is.
of.
I
Yeah.
wish you were a cat so I didn't save this and you would drown.
I know. It is, and you and I were talking about this on the way here. It was like social media, like if you've never done it, and I hadn't really,
Yeah.
And it's such a horrible baptism by fire. It's like I'm going to tell the world about my favorite movie fact, and then they're like, die! I hope you get cancer. I literally had people say, I wish I had cancer for saying something. I hope you get cancer.
The internet's
I'll-
a wild place.
I'll mispronounce a name, and then the next time I'm like, "What's fucking wrong with you? Like, do you not have
Yeah.
a soul? Like, how dare you?"
If I knew where you lived, I would dox you for that, you asshole.
I got banned from the Snyder Cut subreddit for saying something positive about Zack Snyder. I was like, Zack Snyder's cool. They're like, banned.
And then a dead squirrel head showed up in your mailbox the
Yeah,
next
pretty
day.
much. Yeah.
So, if
and
any,
one paw.
wouldn't it be interesting if one of those crazy TikTok trolls found us, killed us for calling them randos, and then we came back to life and we had to somehow avenge ourselves in some like just like saying rando to them. In
Yeah.
their, like show up to their bed at night, just whispering rando until their head explodes.
Tape their
Okay.
eyelids shut and go rando.
Okay, but then here's a question. What would be your spirit guide animal? What would be your crow if you came back to life?
It would have to be very rando.
Yeah.
Sloth? A three-toed sloth feels fitting.
What about you?
I think mine would be a Dodge Charger.
Living a quarter mile at a time. You're
Just
just
with
still
Vin
saying that
Diesel's
even
voice.
after you're dead.
I just drive over to people who get angry at me mispronouncing celebrity names. I get it. It's Statham. I know now. All right.
Die.
I feel like mine would be a penguin.
That would be fun.
Yeah.
I mean, until the
Yeah.
death part. That'd
Well,
be
that's the
cute.
thing is it's cute and cuddly, and then it cuts you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like little arms, but holding a giant machine gun.
Exactly.
I like that visual.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Rando.
My favorite thing to do with trolls is they'll pop in a comment like, "Tell me you don't know anything about gun control," and then I just respond, "I don't know anything about gun
Literally.
control." And then
Please
they
tell
follow
me.
me, and I win a fan. Like I feel like I win the argument.
Yeah. See, you told me that, and I actually embraced that, and I do that now. I used to get super adversarial. Like I had a guy once, and this is way off topic, but we did a Nightmare on Elm Street one. And he talks about in the documentary, there's this like 5-hour documentary. It's incredible about all the Nightmare on Elm Streets. And England talks about the reason that that Freddy Krueger leans like that because he just felt like the claw was kind of heavy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and so I kind of exaggerated. I was like, it was so heavy. but I posted that and people were like, that's not why. And then I found the clip. I literally
Yeah.
went out and found the clip and posted it. And people still were like, no, that's not right. I'm like, he's saying it right there. They're like, you don't know anything about movies.
Yeah.
Bitch.
I don't even remember. We had something like that with Fast and Furious where I reiterated a fact I had learned online from an interview from the director, and everyone's like, "That's so crap. That's not true. You're the worst percent." I'm like, I don't know. I mean, unless the internet is lying, and I mean, it's fair, but like, I didn't invent it. You know, like,
Unless the director was lying. Like,
right?
Which is possible, but why are you mad at me about it?
Take it up with them. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Randos. I feel like most people know, but I think we'd be remiss if we didn't open up with kind of how the Brandon Lee incident happened.
yes.
You know, the scene that had happened during is, you know, Golgothan Testament Blues is playing. He goes into Fun Boy's apartment during the morphine scene. It was during that scene. That's when it happened.
Oh, okay.
And what happened was that they basically, it was a shell that from a blank, something like that. And I guess there was still gunpowder. There's a lot of different versions, but
Yeah.
basically my understanding was it was the shell of a blank. There was still powder in there. They didn't rig it right. They didn't take care of the weapon. It got lodged in his abdomen, and they tried to rush him to the hospital, and he bled to death.
Oh, okay.
One of the most interesting side facts of the incident is that Michael Massey, who was holding the weapon, who played Fun Boy, didn't act for years, and he came back. He did die in 2016. He did come back and did a few movies, did television again, but for years after he just couldn't. He
I
felt
can't even
guilty.
imagine. Like, I don't blame
The
him.
survivor guilt
So,
must
yeah.
have been insane.
Yeah, and even though you know, like you're the actor, you weren't responsible for that weapon,
Yeah.
you weren't loaded, but being holding it and killing the son of a living legend,
Yeah.
knowing that like the feeling on set is that Brandon Lee's going to be a big deal after this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Wachowskis were before The Crow was being filmed. The Wachowskis were considering him for The Matrix.
Mm.
Eventually, Will Smith became the go-to guy before Keanu, but in the very, very early, like you wouldn't probably recognize the film. Brandon Lee was their first choice for Neo.
Wow.
So there was. Can you imagine having The Crow and then him being in The Matrix?
Dude,
Well,
he
I
would have
mean-
been like a superstar.
Oh, absolutely. I literally when the movie started and I saw him come out of the grave, I literally had the thought he looks like Keanu Reeves and Heath Ledger had a baby.
And he's better at martial arts.
Yeah.
And he's incredible shape, and he's
Yeah.
good looking, and he can act, and he's funny.
Yeah.
He had everything, and that's what a good action star does. And when an action star kind of leans drama, he had all the makings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, great delivery. I had somebody say, "No, he was mediocre." I was like, "Get out of town."
Right.
Someone's just saying that to piss you off. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
That was me. That was my burner
Oh.
account.
Damn you! I hope you get cancer. Fuck your quarter mile podcast. No. Vin
And then-
Diesel.
I hope Vin Diesel comes and runs you over in a
Yeah,
car.
and Jason Statham.
Man, me too, man. That would be great. Can you imagine? They hate your podcast so much that they're like, This is tarnishing our legs.
Side note, I just realized we have the perfect assembly here. This is fantastic. You guys are amazing. I'm loving having. I had a feeling getting a bunch of my comedian buddies who also love movies. Like, I don't think there was a losing situation there.
It would either be like amazing or we would go 4 hours and never talk about the movie.
What movie again? The Raven? Yeah.
Edgar Allan Poe. That was a good one.
Yeah. My favorite bird movie. Except for the birds. That movie sucked.
Fuck that movie. Fuck you, Hitchcock.
Yeah, seriously, he's
Your
overrated.
name has cock in it.
And Hitch. This was my favorite thing. I got a few more randos, but this was my favorite one. Brandon controlled the wardrobe. Everything about it. Because, first of all, he knew he had to move in it. He knew he would be doing a lot of the stunts, the martial arts.
Yeah.
He wanted to be able to move in it. And the whole reason that it was worn out over time is like he knew they had like 20 versions of every piece. So the trench coat, for example, when he stole Tintin's trench coat, they were like, he needs a cape. He needs a version of a cape. And so that's why. And so they had like 20 trench coats. And so basically anytime, and also he did his own makeup.
I'm so glad they didn't give him a cape.
I know, that would have been horrible.
Picture that.
With a raven emblem on the back. This would have lost.
Meanwhile, the crow's like, it's a freaking raven.
What if we get to the 2024 remake and we find out that's why it was so bad? Like they did it. They gave him the cape with the raven emblem on the back. Yeah, I'm glad Bill Skarsgård thought that was a good idea. He's been making a lot of headway lately.
Is he the one who played? Oh,
yep.
Shit. Oh,
and see,
damn.
that was my only like, I like him.
Yeah.
And I like his whole family. Like,
No,
I like
they're
all of them.
great, and he was so good as Pennywise.
And he was. And I kind of feel bad for him because I don't know that he knew what he was stepping in.
Yeah.
By taking it. So. But anyway, Brandon also did his own makeup. So they kept trying to get makeup people to do it. He would tell them no. He was never happy. And also him and Alex went through like 30 different paintings. And like sometimes it was like, does this look too much like Kiss?
That was my first thought.
Yeah. So they had to really, and when we get into the other ones, you'll see like it can get bad. And they can do a bad job. It's funny. Once the makeup people took over, it got real bad. But Brandon Lee, it's like his third major film, and he's like nailing it. You know.
So that's so interesting that he had all those skills. I mean, it makes sense to me that he was in charge of the wardrobe because he had to think like, how can you do the martial arts with the? So it was cool that the director's like, let's go with him. But like, what a risk on a newer actor to be like, yeah, let's let them choose what makeup everyone's wearing.
Yeah.
That seems like a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're totally right. It like 9 times out of 10, like an up and coming actor, it would be. But what I understand is that Brandon Lee won everybody over.
Oh yeah.
Ernie Hudson, you have to go find this interview he did with Tony Horton of all people, the P90X guy. I don't know why
Of course, that makes sense.
Like when I saw that Ernie Hudson came out and said that Brandon Lee is the only crow, I was like, he was talking to Tony Horton about it. Like, what did they just do curls? Like, why are we? Like,
they were at a gym and they were like, hey man, you got to quick.
Brandon Lee's the only crow. 2 more sets.
Can I get you saying that in an interview?
20 more burpees. He's the only crow. Yeah. But I'm like, why? But he talks about it. But then, it's what was I talking about? What were
The makeup.
I suddenly have an urge to go work out now.
Oh, I get it now.
I got dumbbells right over there.
I love it. I remember now. Brandon Lee went to dinner with Ernie Hudson, and like Ernie Hudson's his brother-in-law died, and actually his brother-in-law died a couple days before Brandon died.
Oh wow.
And he comforted Ernie, and he was so friendly, and even though he was the star, he was just so unassuming, and everyone talks about how collaborative. The production crew said he was just kind and friendly, and everyone loved him. So like it was he probably just like they let him do whatever he wanted. It's like, oh, it's Brandon, he's awesome, we love him.
Yeah.
So that is cool to hear though.
Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And I think, it's funny because I love movies, but I hate celebrities.
Yeah.
So it's this weird, like anytime I hear Leo talk about climate change, I'm like, I'm sure that's a thing, but now that you're talking about it, I don't care.
Fuck the climate.
Fuck you, Leo.
I'm fascinated by celebrities.
Yeah.
The craziness that ensues.
Yeah.
It is so much. It only makes me like watching them act more.
Yeah. And when people find out I do a movie podcast, it's like, well, what do you think about this relationship in Hollywood? I'm like, I don't care.
That's not what we talk about.
I talk about the movies, unless it's Coppola. I love everything about his life. Like, but outside of Coppola, not exactly a People magazine type of conversation.
No.
This is really cool, and you might find this interesting with your
to
filmmaking
me.
background. There were rules about what colors were allowed. So if you look
Yeah,
at the monochrome
okay.
aspect of it,
Mhm.
they actually had written rules. We don't have greens. We don't have this.
Yep.
We want this film to be consistently drab. We want it to have this look. And so everyone knew there was a list, and we cannot have these colors
I
on
like
set.
it.
Which, okay, so that is actually really interesting because if you going even back to the whole black leather aspect of this movie, if you watch any other movie where everyone's decked out in black leather, it's all green covered in the color grade.
Yeah.
And that was a thing for the dark action movies of the 90s through the early 2000s. For whatever reason, everyone was just like, let's shit green on the screen
Yep.
and make it all this weird green hue. I know, like, I feel like The Matrix kind of like made it peak. Like that was the best version of what that could be.
Yeah.
And everyone else was just like, oh, well, that was successful. So let's do that. But that's very, I absolutely love when directors put that kind of thought into their costuming, into the set design, literally down to, we cannot have
Mhm.
this color. Like one of the reasons Christopher Nolan's movies look so good in the color grade is because he's partially colorblind.
Oh, really?
He's partially colorblind, and so because of that, he's very particular with the color palettes that he chooses for all of his movies.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So knowing that's really impressive. Actually, I like that a lot.
I feel like that's another thing, like we were talking about, like the importance of the soundtrack of a movie is
Mhm.
like something like that. It takes something from good and makes it to great. Like
Yeah.
it's like you don't like. I didn't notice that, except I did notice that. Like
Mhm.
I loved the look of the entire movie,
Yeah.
and I didn't think to myself, oh, they must only have a few colors that they're using the entire. But I did think, like,
Yeah.
wow, this looks really good.
Yeah. And it even goes
Yeah.
back to the
Yeah.
way that they built those miniatures and made everything feel
Mhm.
like this otherworldly kind of situation. And like you said, you wouldn't notice until someone says there's no green
Mhm.
in the movie, but it never feels weird. You're never like, it's weird that there's not this kind of color in here.
Yeah.
Like it all feels natural to the character they created in the city.
It's so interesting too how colors influence us.
Oh,
like
yeah.
like I remember when I used to be a youth pastor, if we did like retreats, during the mornings when people came in, we'd have like all the tables would be all brightly colored.
Mhm.
But then when they came back for the evenings, we'd change it to like blues and dark colors to chill them out a
Yeah.
little bit
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And like it was like little subtle things that no one noticed, but I swear it works.
Yeah.
Mm.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, color theory is a thing.
It really is. Yeah, and it's really the little details, and this is why I don't love covering new movies, because there's no interesting stories.
Yeah.
This did not have a giant budget. They were cutting things out because a lot.
What was the budget? Do you know?
I can't remember the budget. I could
$10.
$10, but you can see a lot of the green screen in it, like when Skunk falls out of the window, when
Yeah.
Brandon Lee's
Yeah.
character falls out of the window. Like there's a lot of screening going on.
Oh yeah.
So and those were in the miniatures. The car chases were all miniatures.
Yeah.
So there were things they were doing, but there was such cohesion with the decision making, with the color, the soundtrack. They're doing these little things that elevated this movie big time.
Yeah.
So
It just felt like, and I mean, you saw it even among the tragedy, but the movie was fun because you could tell how into the movie everybody making the movie was.
Yeah.
And so that even after such a tragedy, that I mean, movies are art. And so that's why they were like, Brandon Lee this was an act of art, and
Yeah.
we want to share it. And I don't know, that's cool. It's cool.
Estimated budget was 23 million,
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
which even by those standards was not a lot of money.
Well, and CGI was I can't remember what was it on T2 per second of CGI. It cost it was like 1.2 million per
Yeah,
second.
it was
It's like
Wow.
CGI was not a thing, and it wasn't available at $23 million.
Yeah.
It was basically available to James Cameron,
Yeah.
and that was it.
And just to close holes in hands and bodies. Like
Yeah.
it was, you had to use it. And honestly, I didn't have any complaints about the couple of times that they used CG because they used it so sparingly for things that they had to use it for.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and even though that might be the part that didn't hold up as well, I do remember as a kid thinking that was awesome.
Oh yeah.
Right.
That was awesome, especially when he's looking through the hole.
But I mean, even today, like I literally just watched it 6 hours ago.
Yeah.
And even then I did the only thing that stood out to me was the fact that you could tell that the hand that the hole was closing up wasn't his arm.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
just because of the angle that it was at. But if I had seen that on VHS or if I had seen that in the theater back in the day, you never would have known.
And I think they did that after he died. Yeah,
Okay.
they had to make that. That was a post-production move. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Last rando. This is a small thing, but it's crazy. Lawrence Mason, who played Tintin, who, by the way, amazing villain.
Yeah.
So many great villains. It's one of my favorite things about it. He had a water phobia in real life, the actor. And it just so happens that Tintin, one of the early things that happens in that fight is that Draven shoves his head under that puddle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They had a really hard time filming that. He had to like overcome his fear. And so the whole time they kept having to redo it because he has a water phobia and like
Yeah.
he's supposed to be drowning under there.
Yeah.
And so I just thought that was crazy that, you got a water phobia, do it anyway.
Oh my
But
God.
like, you almost wonder if the director's like, I mean, that would make a really good shot if he looks like he doesn't enjoy it. Like, if he's really terrified as he's being drowned, that would look great. Like, I mean, it's
mean-
sick, but like, movie directors have been known to
Yeah,
do that. Like,
Absolutely. Kubrick did that all the time.
Kubrick made, she just died recently, Wendy from The Shining. How could I forget her name?
Yeah. I
Shelley Duvall.
That's it.
I mean,
That's it.
he literally gave her mental illness.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like,
I mean, he was pretty much responsible for Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman breaking up. Like,
Yep.
because what he did during Eyes Wide Shut was he would send them to therapy, but
Mhm.
he would sit in on the therapy sessions and use what he
so
learned
creepy.
during those therapy sessions
Oh my
to
gosh.
fuck with him on set.
yeah. That's
Yeah.
not a HIPAA violation.
No,
I feel,
not at
yeah,
all.
I feel like that's breaking some kind of law. Like, I feel like there's rules against that.
Well, see that all depends if they're licensed or not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did he really send them to therapy, or did he send them to like their friend Chad?
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
just like,
Here's
I,
British
I
Shelley
took a
Chatter.
therapy class in college. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I know psychology.
Yeah. I watched that Freud documentary. It was
Yeah.
pretty good. You
Yeah.
know, just penis envy. It's all it really is.
I want to fuck my mom. I can do this.
It's just
Right.
it's just Oedipus stuff. It's all. I
Yeah.
mean, really, as long as we talk about Oedipus, we're good. The war card. Here we go, baby. And just as a reminder, you've been doing it on Mad Max, but this is the first time we've done it with 3 participants here. Just to remind the crew of kind of the changes we made since we're doing one movie at a time. It's still 7 categories, and basically we have an affirmative, which is our yes, we dig it, and then we have the no, and then both categories are named after something from the movie. So our positive, yes, I dug that, is The Crow Flies, like as the Crow Flies,
Cool.
and if you didn't dig it, eat crow.
okay,
love it.
I love it.
Love it.
Yeah. So, and we got 7 categories, and also our lovely crew. We had a bunch of people fill out the crowd scorecard, so I'll be mentioning some comments along the way.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that. Thanks
Yeah.
for filling them out.
Oh yeah, it took some time, and some people were very thoughtful with their comments. So very,
That's awesome.
very thankful. Shall we war?
Let's do it.
Let's
Let's
war
do-
it up. I don't,
Yeah.
yeah.
Let's fly. Yeah. Let's jump from rooftop to rooftop to the sound. Oh my god! I was trying to say something, and that was amazing. I was like, I can't talk after that. Imagine if this movie was called The Owl. This would be a much different movie.
Who thinks that? Okay, we're done.
Maybe that would have been a great
What a-
interview
it'd be a
question.
hoot.
What's the worst bird to like lead a soul vigilante out of the grave?
Oh, a condor. Are you? Where's he going? I don't know. Let's follow the giant bird.
What was Darwin's
Kill
bird?
it. It's the
dodo?
last one.
Yeah.
Yeah, the dodo
Yeah,
bird.
Literally, the whole case for evolution can't just walks into trees and stuff. Like, yeah, we'll get to the vengeance
Or if
later.
it was like a woodpecker, it'd be so easy to kill.
He tries to kill a condor at the end of the movie, and a bunch of environmentalist activists show up and fuck them up.
You can't do that. They're endangered.
Or nowadays it's like an eagle and it's like America propaganda.
yeah, it's just-
Uncle
Join the
Sam
Marines.
just comes down and teabags him.
I love it.
I want you to stop killing birds.
That's the parody movie of The Crow, is
The
make it
eagle.
the eagle, and it's just like he's dressed up as Uncle Sam. It's all only colors are red, white, and blue.
Yeah, Kid Rock's playing in the back.
Yeah.
He just carries a boombox.
I think Kid Rock is Brandon Lee in that. Like
Yeah.
I think he's the lead
Six
star.
pack of Coors Light, just going from
No,
place
Bud
to
Light's
place.
back. Bud Light's back.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's true.
Yeah, Bud Light's back. He's totally fine with Bud Light now, thanks
Yeah.
to Shane Gillis.
Killing lobbyists.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's terrible, but it would be a funny movie.
You funded universal health care. It's over for you. Amazing. We just made a political somehow.
Let's do it, yeah.
Let's do it. The Eagle. All right. First category, top bill cast. In this case, it's just Brandon Lee. He's got the only name on the poster there. So
Yeah, I mean, Crow Fly.
Yeah, fly that crow, man.
Yeah.
He did great. He was. I mean, It felt like he carried the movie. I mean, I feel mean to I know the next one's the rest of the supporting cast, but I mean, he did great.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, fantastic.
Yeah, fantastic. I agree. And there's just, to me, it's just the trajectory he had after that, like what we would have seen him do.
Ugh.
It's always hard to figure. He could have been Neo, could have been all these. Yeah.
Yeah.
So absolutely, the crow flies here as well. Supporting cast. Now I want to name off the supporting cast because there's some folks in there that they kind of just tucked in there that are pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Tony Todd, the Candyman.
Yeah.
Rochelle Davis played Sarah. Ernie Hudson, who I love, obviously Ghostbusters too.
Yes.
Yeah.
A lot of love there. Michael Wincott is top dollar with that amazing raspy voice. Bai Ling is Micah, which is spelled M-Y-C-A, which sounds like a bad yogurt brand. And then Sophia Shyness plays Shelley Webster.
Okay.
Anna Levine is Darla, which I thought was good. But here's the one I really wanted to get into. David Patrick Kelly is T-Bird. I'll go ahead and just kick off with this one since I'm talking so much. I love David Patrick Kelly. He played Sully in Commando. He was the villain in that.
Okay.
He is nothing like these people in real life.
Yeah.
When you watch interviews, he also was John Wick. He's the cleaner in John Wick.
That's right.
Okay, that's why I recognize him. Okay.
Like in the special features for The Crow, they're asking him questions and he's answering everything in like the text of Bertrand Russell. He's like, well, when I'm reading Russell, he's just like this well-read, quiet, sensitive. He plays acoustic guitar. He's
Nice.
But when he gets on screen, man, oh my God. I mean, Sully's such a conniving, and that's the one Arnold, he holds over the ledge. And D-Bird is just such a weird, like, I can't figure out if he's drunk or just mentally ill or but he's also very dependable. He's like, he gets everything done for, he owns Devil's Night. So I love that. But I just also, man, I love Tony Todd. I just love him. He's actually like a Shakespearean guy.
Nice.
So I love the supporting cast. I know Brandon Lee because because of the legend, it's hard to look past him.
Yeah.
But I think everybody lives. I love Michael Massey as Fun Boy.
Yeah.
My main reason I love this movie, besides Brandon Lee, is just the unique villains, and I think every actor was chosen very well. Angel,
Absolutely.
the actor who plays Skank, what's his name again? Angel. Why is he not listed? This is such a long cast.
Yeah.
Like he's nothing like that either in real life. When you watch interviews with him, he's just very quiet, subtle. But Skank is this annoying, like.
I love it when you watch that actors be someone they're completely not. I mean, that is acting. Like when you're like watching and you're like not even like. That's cool. That's always fun to watch.
So the crow flies hard on that one.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm also crow flies. Ernest, Officer Ghostbuster was my favorite character in the movie.
Yes.
It was. I mean, comparing to movies nowadays, it was so nice to see like a movie where the police are actually the good guys. Like there was no corrupt cops. There was a mean cop, but they were actually on the side of doing right. And I was like, I forgot that like they can be good guys in movies.
Yeah, that's and there was an emotional element to that too when he realizes that he had stayed in the room with Shelley before she died. Like, all of a sudden you're like, damn, like that got me. That was like, oh, this is a good man.
Yeah,
and Ernie Hudson's earnestness as an actor was perfect for that. His earnestness. But I do think that's if I were to describe his acting method, it would definitely be like that earnest Kevin Costner vein of acting.
Yeah,
and it was perfect for this.
Yeah,
loved it.
Interesting. So the crew, they were with us. They were the Crow Flies. This is the only category they split on. This was 50-50. One folks said on the supporting cast, each of them are memorable and Candyman is in it. Love that. I basically said the same thing, except I said it much better. I'm just kidding. Love you. Thank you.
You can unsubscribe now if you
Seriously, write better. No. I love it. Thank you for contributing. But then one other person went on a tirade here. I love it. And I think I know which fan this was. Other than the character of Sarah, the rest of the supporting cast basically are goons. They're very forgettable besides T-Bird. I know you, I love you, but I couldn't disagree more.
Same.
That's funny. I mean, all the villains had their one dimensionalness, but they committed. They got so into it. Like each villain did just have one thing, but that's how they were written. So if the question was writing the actual individual villains, that might be something I'd be like, eat crow. But if it's like the actors they took the parts that they were given and you could tell they had fun with it and they did it well.
Yeah, 100%.
And it feels like they grew out of the ground, doesn't it? Like we have this shitty, gloomy setting, and it feels like these people are so grimy. Like they literally are weeds growing out of the concrete. Like that's who these people are, and I feel like that's how they nail it.
They're products of the crappy place they live in.
Exactly.
If the more funds were gone into that town, then maybe less people would have picked a life out of crime.
Yeah. Fire it I knew I had to do that during the fight.
That was so dumb. But like in that movie, I was like, sure.
I know. You're right. Like zooming out now that we're talking, I'm like, that was the only weird thing really in the movie was the chant.
And like at the end when he was doing it because he was so sad that he lost to the other guy, I felt for him. I was like, that's.
He's like, oh, I guess
weird.
this is a bad time.
That's when you're wondering if he's mentally handicapped.
Yeah.
That's when you're like,
Yeah. That guy's been huffing helium.
Yeah.
You know. All right, poetic killings. We're gonna go into the creative / interesting deaths here.
Okay.
What do you think?
I mean, there were definitely some very inventive ways of killing people. I don't feel like we had seen death by a shit ton of heroin on screen before that. So I'm personally gonna say that The Crow flies on that one.
Yeah.
I mean, just the fact that it related back to the crimes that they committed in the original scene.
Yeah.
Was what made it good. So
Also, can we just really
the Crow
quick
friend.
talk about that flashback scene where he goes back to his home and has every one of those flashbacks about the night that it happened? That was one of the notes I wrote down was that was so well put together.
Yeah.
I cannot think of many other scenes that were better edited than that one scene.
Yeah.
Like that was absolutely incredible to watch.
And you probably know this with your filmmaking background, but flashbacks are a risk.
Oh yeah.
They can be a crutch.
Absolutely.
They can be badly done. They can
Yes.
confuse the audience. And
Yes.
usually, and this is just the truth, even in great films, flashbacks are often make up for gaps in storytelling.
Right.
Absolutely.
Here, they were essential. The
Yeah.
color, it was Devil's Night, so everything was red,
Yep.
and like they were well done. They had a purpose here.
And
And-
also the fact that like you were talking about at the beginning, that there was no exposition at the beginning. You're just dropped right into the story. So the fact that they were able to utilize those flashbacks so quickly that it wasn't just like a long flashback sequence. It was literally just boom, he's touching this
Yeah.
thing and now he's got a flashback of that moment. And then 2 seconds later, he's got another flashback of this other moment in this other spot. Incredibly well done.
I feel like in this movie, the flashbacks were the exposition.
Yes,
Yeah.
And-
absolutely.
And we see that still in movies today, but then you'll see them like then give more exposition on what
Yeah.
you already saw in the flashback. So
Yeah.
just the fact that I'm sitting here, I'm watching this movie, I'm wondering what the deal is. They do the flashback and you're kind of figuring it out, but no one comes back. It's not like the police officer comes back later and says, "Let me tell you what just happened."
Yeah.
You know, like and it was refreshing. It was like, oh, I'm watching a plot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. So sorry for diverging there, but I felt like that had to be mentioned. That is one of the best flashback scenes I've ever
True.
seen in my life.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, The Crow flies here, man. I
Yeah.
love how each death was connected to what they did to Shelley and Eric. That was fantastic. I think Eric made the reason I call this category poetic killing because it is almost poetic.
Oh yeah.
And my favorite one, even though he doesn't kill Polito's character in the pawn shop, why am I forgetting his name all of a sudden?
I am too.
Polito's name.
I think I wrote it down.
Yeah, check that out. I don't know how I could forget. He's one of the most memorable characters, but
Nope, I did not write it down.
but he, that was is that gasoline I smell?
Yeah.
Like the way he almost enjoys every second
Yeah.
of the revenge. I think it's really cool. And
Gideon.
That's right. Such a great name for him.
Yeah, seriously though.
Also, no one else could have played that raspy voice, the bald spot. That was
Did great, yeah.
That was Polito all.
Solid.
So totally Crow flies. The crew agreed. They voted the same in some of the comments. Every death was an event. Totally agree. And then each kill, I felt like it hit the mark portraying each villain. So basically, this is what we just said. So really great comics here. Although this person thought maybe they should have killed T-Bird last, which that would have been interesting.
Honestly, that was so interesting to me that he was the first to go because
But he's
he
black.
he was the most.
Oh, 10-10.
Yeah, because he was so interesting. So that's Tintin. That's different than T-Bird. My bad. Well,
Oh,
I
got
would
those
have
confused
loved
too.
to see him last a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Honestly.
It was
I
like,
don't know. You had the big boss. You had to kill the big boss at the end.
Yeah.
Like,
And he wasn't in the room, so he didn't have a flashback. to go on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah.
so yeah.
Yeah. And he had that voice.
Yeah.
Am I close with that? Like, oh, what is the quote you said? Childhood.
yeah.
Didn't he? Isn't there a fact where like he would like just? I might be mixing this up with completely different actor in a different movie, but I feel like I read something where like he would yell in that voice to get to that point so that he could like do it.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So-
It's very raspy.
yeah.
To what you were saying, best quote of the entire movie, in my opinion, Dad gave me this 5th birthday. He said, childhood's over the moment you know you're going to die.
Childhood's over the moment you know you're gonna die.
What a fucked up thing to say to
Yeah.
a 5-year-old.
I know. While you're like slightly incestuous with your sister.
Right. If you're ever wondering, like, how do you get your kids into a life of crime? I think saying shit like that is like a great way to get them into it.
Yeah, that's good. Like you're 5. Like let's go to Chuck E. Cheese. Actually, let's have a talk. We're doing the birds and the bees.
Everyone's
now.
gonna die. Here's a knife.
No.
The other 2 quotes that I absolutely loved: "No onions, they make you fart big time." Thank you,
that.
Sarah. And then, "Oh shit, shit on me, shit on me."
Yes.
I didn't know you were that kinky, Polito.
I love it. I love it, dude. I know he was so good. We kind of glaze over Sarah, but she's honestly like kind of like the only thing that annoys me. I didn't love
Oh
her.
really?
I didn't
thought
love
she
her.
was fantastic.
Yeah.
I
It's
thoroughly
weird.
enjoyed her
I
performance.
thought she was a good like dichotomy to Brandon's character.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So like,
She definitely gave me vibes of like someone who was forced to grow up, like versus because we might do True Grit later, but the thing that pissed me off about the original True Grit was how fucking annoying the girl
Yeah.
is, because she seems like a child who wants to be a grown up, versus in the remake that the Coen brothers did, again seems like a girl who was forced to grow up and is actually taking on that
Was that
responsibility.
Haley Steinfeld?
Yeah.
She was fantastic.
Incredible. But that's the vibe that I got from
Yeah.
Sarah in this, was just a girl in this life who was forced to grow up
Mm.
at 10 years old.
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah.
No, I love it. And I love the dynamic with Darla when she's making the eggs. Like
yeah,
that scene
that
she
was
does.
such a good moment.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and one more thing I forgot. David Patrick Kelly originally auditioned to be Top Dollar.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But they wanted Wayne Cott from the beginning, but they definitely wanted Kelly in the movie. So
Okay.
that's how that happened. I don't
Nice.
know. That would have been better in the casting. But this stuff just comes to you.
Hey, we're here. Let's do it.
Next category, The Mask. I named it after the Jim Carrey movie.
good movie,
But
good movie, weird,
very
movie, but
good.
good movie.
Weird
Still
and
haven't
good.
seen it.
Really?
Yeah.
It's hilarious, bro. So this category entails everything, from the leathers to the villain's dress, to just the whole wardrobe and the mask. Because this is going to be important through the whole franchise, because each entry, it looks different. Like
Okay.
everything looks different. So it'll be interesting how this varies over the course of the
Yeah.
franchise. And none of us has seen the new one.
Yeah,
But the preview, it looks totally different.
Yeah.
So what did you think of the wardrobe, the mask, everything?
Off the chain, I thought it was fantastic. You could tell that there was thought put into every aspect of what people were wearing, the way, and like you said, when the fact that Brandon did his own makeup, like that to me just speaks to the fact that he had embodied the character. Because that moment where he puts the makeup on when he first comes back to the house, like that's such an important moment that if you kind of pawn that off to the makeup department, I can see how it would have lost its profoundness there when he is the one who's decided what he's going to look like.
I love that.
So yeah, crow flies on that for me.
I'm gonna give it a crow's fry. That's what I'm gonna
crows.
Deep
Five
fried
guys.
crow.
I'm gonna give it a crow's fry.
Crow fries.
First, I'm gonna learn how to speak, and then I'm gonna
We
come.
talk good for a living.
So it was good, but I think what made it so good for me and so different than just like modern movies that we see today is it wasn't super advanced. It wasn't super tough.
Yeah.
Like if someone was like, I wanted to see a lot of good costumes and really big details and stuff like that, they might not like it as much. It was
Yeah.
pretty basic. It was pretty straightforward through the whole movie. It was intentional,
Mhm.
and I think it worked.
Yeah.
And it'll be interesting to watch especially when we get to the newest one, because with knowing absolutely nothing about it, something tells me they probably went overboard on costumes.
Yeah.
Like that, because that's our style now, so just go overboard on it.
Yeah.
And I think the reason I'm saying yes to it, not because it was like, wow, these costumes are fantastic. It's
Mhm.
because they were basic and it added to the plot.
Yeah, they felt lived in. Like, so something I've noticed, and I really noticed it in the new Avatar: The Last Airbender series, is the reason a lot of these modern productions look so out of place is because the costumes people are wearing look like you just pulled them out of the Spirit Halloween box.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
don't look lived in. They don't look worn. Like every single one of these people look like this is the only set of clothes that they have,
Yeah.
and they've been wearing them every day for the past 10 years, and they reflected that. So yeah, 100% agree
Yeah.
with you on that.
Yeah, I totally agree. And like you look at Rob Zombie's remake of Halloween, like all of a sudden Michael Myers needs to be 6'10", and it needs to be a bodybuilder type. It's like this, yeah, it's whenever it's like when we reboot something, we got to exacerbate it,
Yeah.
you know, and I totally agree. And yeah, I go the crow flies here. I love it. And one of my favorite factoids, not just with Brandon Lee doing his own makeup, but they always said that the best look that he ever had was after a day of filming. Because by the end of it, the rain that they were using on set, it would wear it down and all the new sheen would come off, and those were the best takes.
Yeah.
Were the ones where like the wetness had ruined the kind of fresh look and it was almost transparent.
Yeah.
And so there is a rawness to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And the crew is right there with us. They also voted Crow Flies, a couple of the comments. The makeup looks simple but natural. Totally agree. And then without this look, there is no new generation to this. I feel like it was very unique at the time, and Lee delivered it to a T, giving influence to characters like Sting, the wrestler. I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, great
Oh,
comment.
yeah, I forgot about Sting with that. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
He would have been great in this movie.
Yeah, which is funny. When he first started wrestling, he had the surf image, blonde hair, and it was always turquoise and pink. Yeah.
That's weird.
So where are we at here? We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We got 5 so far. We're gonna win, but we got to finish these categories. But the crew did give us a split. So bunch of critics out there, bunch of tight asses.
Yeah,
Okay,
come on.
We love you. Keep listening.
Save your criticisms for the definitely shittier ones afterwards, please.
Yeah. Maintain your positivity. You're gonna need it.
It's all downhill from here.
Yeah. I entitled this category, "How good are these bad guys, huh?" What do you think? How good are these bad guys?
I just want to give your titles like, as the crow flies.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
So here's what I am gonna say, and I'm personally split on the villains.
Okay.
I think 60% of them were fantastically well done.
Okay.
I think there were a couple, Skank being one of them. I appreciate what he was doing with the character, but there was a little too much cartoony for me as far as a couple of them are concerned. As we've mentioned a couple of times, the chanting, what the fuck? Like, that's just, it's so out of place for the setting of this movie. The villains, while for the most part were very well done, there was just a little too much cartoony for me to fully go Crow Flies.
Yeah.
So I'm a little split on this.
Hey.
I'm gonna take a stance.
Please.
I'm
no.
gonna say that in general, objectively, villains not that great. What made this movie good was that was part of it. Was the plot, the killing of each villain was what escalated the plot.
Yeah.
But if we're talking comics, if we're there are, like, Spider-Man's a great example, Batman's a great example of each of their villains are well thought out, and there's a lot of depth to them. And if this was like a Batman movie or just Batman in general, we could say, like, man, each of those villains, there's a whole lot you can say about them. With these villains, except for the main antagonist, you'd have like maybe 3 sentences of character development you can say. Now that was intentional for the movie, so like it worked for what we were doing with the plot. But since this category is specifically how do we feel about these villains, completely one-dimensional. Each one had a thing. And so if this was an extended comic book series, I would hope that they would go into more detail about each of them, because right now they're just run-of-the-mill henchmen, minions.
Yeah,
totally.
And that's why I'm split. Is like, a few of them took what they were given, ran with it very well, but because for the most part they are so flat as characters, I feel like instead of taking it upon themselves to add depth for themselves, they just kind of went with, let's go over the top with this. So I agree with you on that.
So even though I'm saying no to that one, or eat crow,
crow.
I do
Fry
think
crow.
it's important. Fry that crow.
Eat
Fry
fry.
it. The movie would not have worked as well though if
Sure.
each villain was really well developed, and we had to spend time developing each person.
Because it's definitely not a movie where you want to care about the people who raped and murdered people.
Yeah.
Right.
So
it's like, well, they had good reason. They were just,
There's no like
there were
justification.
good people on both sides.
I could see it both ways. Yeah.
Well, honestly, even though I go Crow Flies and it doesn't matter, I'm overruled, which is great. On my own podcast. No. I do
3
love,
more overrules and we're kicking him off the podcast.
Yeah, and then you guys are gonna take over, and you're gonna call it something else. Eagle Wars,
Yeah.
Freedom.
starring Kid Rock, in theaters November. This is one of the reasons I love the scorecard, though, because like it leads conversation. You guys, even though like I obviously think differently, like you did open my mind, and you just blew my mind because. Earlier, I asked you the question: how does this compare to what is now a very popular, ingrained in our society, which is MCU,
Yeah.
comic book? And you're so right. What we're used to is that, like, you know, what's his face? And I'm not a big MCU guy, but you know, Dr. Octopus, is that his name, right?
Doc Ock, yeah.
Yeah, Doc. Like he has such an interesting
Yeah.
backstory,
Right.
Oh, yeah.
and we're used to like because we have so many of these movies and so much supporting comic book literature, we get lifetimes, and it gives you the time to almost say, well, if you're a fan of the literature and the movies, well, he did that because back in comic number whatever, this happened to him, and
Yeah.
like, and diehard fans are doing that. Here we have, you know, one set. We have the Crow, which I think it was 4. There were 4 different Crow graphic comics, but they were combined into one. Now you buy them as one, but I can't. I think it was 4 or 5. But you're right. Like it's, and there may have been more detail there, but you literally are kind of just dropped into this story,
Yeah.
and you just know these are bad, grimy dudes that look like they grew out of the ground.
Yeah.
I totally respect that point of view. I love that they're unique, and I love that their attributes connect to how he kills them in the end.
Yeah,
I think
that
that's
part's
great.
cool.
But I could also see like wanting more.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
how did T-Bird like? Did they call him T-Bird because he was bad at T-ball? Like I like his parent, and you know,
His first name's Theodore.
yeah, like
And it's actually BYRD. It's just a last name.
Yeah.
It's just street name back when he
Like-
was young, getting into the gang.
yeah, like Gideon, like
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
Biblical name. He grew up Southern Baptist, but
Yeah.
really went south.
yeah, and the
He
weird,
liked laying fleece out in the rain, and he wanted
Yeah.
to make sure it got wet in the morning.
yeah. So I totally,
Bible deep cut, y'all.
I love the points of the crew. The crew went crow flies, but here we
But they're
it's
wrong.
5-1.
It's okay.
It's
Yeah.
wrong. Yeah. Ah!
Suck
Eagle.
it.
This is Movie Wars 2.0, where we hate the fans. I asked you just to make fun of you. No, cool. No, love those points though. Very good. All right, next category. I called this the Shitty City Award, which is actually it's supposed to be shitty.
Yeah.
But rate the setting.
I mean, to me, 100% crow flies. Like I was talking about, the fact that they used miniatures, and I know that was the thing to do back in the day, but we've lost that so much. I know it's still sort of a practice. Like I know on Blade Runner 2049, miniatures played a huge part in the setting itself, but I feel like it's somewhat of a dying art outside of a few directors who are very intent on making sure everything that can be real is. I think we all know one of the biggest reasons Lord of the Rings is so good today is because I think the estimate is like 75% of the things that you were seeing on screen were filmed in one way or another. And looking at this city, it is its own character. It has its own life. There is its own blood force that is making this thing its own personal character. So for me, I think they nailed it. I 100% am on crow flies on this one.
Love that.
Love it. Same. The crow. Keep that crow flying.
Yeah.
I mean,
Get outta here.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, as soon as you get into the movie, you're just so dialed into this place. Like it makes sense that
From the
like,
first shot.
yeah, it makes sense that all these like terrible criminals are terrible. I mean, there's probably so much seasonal depression there. People are probably it's probably just a rough place to live.
Yeah.
Can you imagine being one of those police officers there? That is not where you want to get.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. So
Can't rain all the time.
And I travel to Seattle for work every 6 to 7 weeks, and this made Seattle look like, you know, the sunniest
Sunshine
place
and rainbows
on the planet. Yeah, I agree. And the reason I agree, it's like you never asked the question. I just realized, like, I've seen this movie over 100 times, and never did I ask, like, why does it never stop raining?
Right,
Like,
yeah.
not even a moment. It's just like, and you're like, why is everything so run down? Like,
Yeah.
why is almost everyone evil? Like,
Yeah.
98. Why is 98% of the population horrible?
Yeah.
yeah.
You just you're so bought in
Yeah.
that you just never think to ask, you
Yeah,
know, and
exactly.
so I totally give it the same.
Yeah.
So love it. And the crew also won on that one. Or sorry, I say a one. I wrote the number 1 to indicate that they said the crow flies. I'm getting lost.
You
in
all
my-
are a bunch of winners.
Yes, I'm getting lost in my own production sheet here. All right, it's 5-1. Last category, or not that it matters because we see the score, but hey, we got to finish it out.
Yeah.
Revenge served awesome. Did the because revenge is the theory, the whole thing through the movies, right? Do you feel like it delivered on this purpose? Did he? I'm trying to think of a good way to say this. Did the punishment fit the crime?
Oh yeah. So
Yeah.
here's the thing I have to do with this movie in particular is I have to look at it for when it came out. Because clearly we have had so many revenge movies come out since, and there were definitely plenty before, but it wasn't as drawn out of a genre as it is today. So for me, I am going to forget everything that has happened since this movie's been made. I'm going to forget everything about John Wick. I'm going to forget all of that. And I genuinely think this is one of the most timeless revenge flicks I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Legitimately brought me back to some of the grittiness of especially a couple of like 1970s revenge movies. I don't know if y'all have seen I Spit on Your Grave. Very, very graphic, intense movie. I don't recommend it for most people because it is a very disturbing watch. But to me, that is a very quintessential revenge film. And this hearkened me back to that kind of setting where, yeah, genuinely you are making sure that each person who did something horrific had something equally as horrific done back to them.
Yeah.
So crow flies on that for me.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the revenge was the plot of the movie.
Yeah.
So as the crow flies, it's you go into it knowing you're watching an anti-hero. Like the context would be completely different if this was a Superman movie.
Yeah.
Right.
And because there's part of me that like when he busts into the banquet hall and is killing all those people, I'm like, I hope that guy didn't have a family. He wasn't even part of he just was there. He was just a henchman who's like, get him. And he was like, okay, I guess I need to pay for my child support. Maybe a little overkill to the people that weren't present but I mean, they were working by association for them. But I mean, it's just, you go into this knowing like, okay, he's an anti-hero. This is, it's just like we were talking with villains. You understand the motivation to why they are the way they are. Well, that's something maybe we could have used more of in this movie with the individual villains. But with Brandon Lee, you understood why he was the way he was.
Yeah.
And so there's nothing in me that's just like, oh, he's a little heavy-handed here. I'm like, yo, get him.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah, and I love how you went back to I Spit on Your Grave.
Yeah.
Really great. Yeah, revenge is such an interesting thing because it's an asset to so many movies, westerns, so many genres, you films that depict, Roman time, whatever it is. Like it's just very commonplace. This was actually the only category where I actually did go the other way. And it's kind of weird to say that this movie is the perfect movie to me. It's not like but the thing I don't get is I love the flashbacks, but at the same time, it feels like it's his only measure of like who to kill and when. And like, he didn't even know Top Dollar existed until he confessed to him that he was the guy that hired T-Bird.
But remember, you had the crow guiding him through this. He was about to put himself back in the grave until the crow itself realized that Sarah had been kidnapped.
Did he just forget? Like, oh yeah, there's this other guy. He hired all these guys.
Well, what I got out of that was that because he died and came back, I don't think he even remembered Shelley until he got back to the apartment. And then that's when all of the flashes started hitting him, and that's when he started remembering what happened.
Yeah, when he first came, he like in the beginning of the movie, he wasn't completely aware of what was going on.
Yeah.
Right.
And you would see the pain he would have as he had those flashbacks, which was their storytelling device of telling us the plot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is kind of interesting.
So, I don't know. To me, I feel like it worked itself out appropriately. But I get what you're saying. Like, I get the other side of it.
I'm just trying to figure out like we already rose from the dead here.
Yeah.
To avenge some stuff. It's like but it's kind of weird the oversight with like, oh, there's this other guy, he's the boss.
Yeah.
Let's go. He took Sarah, let's go get him.
Yeah. But I don't know. Like I said, he wouldn't have had a memory of that guy. And then the only reason he went after him and then got the confession was because of Sarah.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It makes sense to me.
One thing we never get is like an explanation of like how he came back.
Yeah.
Like, was it like
that was in the opening narration, very specifically about how the crow was leading his soul to the grave, but because there was unfinished business, the crow kept him and brought him back on the same day.
Right. So right from the start, we should just be okay with crows doing that.
Yeah.
Like that's
to me, whenever I watch a movie like this, especially when it has a little opening narration like that. My rule is the moment the movie explains the rules of the universe, throw everything you know about anything else out the window, and these are the only rules you have to follow.
It's kind of like how in like any Karate Kid, Cobra Kai, you're like, oh yeah, karate solves everything.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep.
Like, or in Fast and Furious, when you land on a car, it stops you from dying. Got
Well,
it.
like for me, a recent one that I feel like for me did it well was Tenet, Christopher Nolan's movie. So many people hated that movie so much.
I loved it.
But it's because they missed the first 15 minutes of explanation where literally it set up every single rule for what was about to happen and nothing happened outside of those rules. But everyone was trying to explain it in modern day physics and modern day blah. And I'm like, no. They told you exactly how this was going to work. You have to follow those rules, and he stayed within those bounds.
I really
Same
like
thing
that
with
you
this
said
one.
that, because that is true about movies. Like when you get into whatever universe you're watching of whatever series, and even with TV shows, like you just know, well, in this movie, this is the way it is because that's the plot.
Yeah.
You know? So-
Well, not even the plot. It's the rules of the universe. So if a movie or TV show tries to say this is grounded in real life, then feel free to go and say, well, this isn't realistic for real life, because that's what they're trying to do. But when you're watching a crazy movie like The Crow or like Tenet or like Interstellar or something that clearly is trying to break the bounds of what we know in this world, you have to forget everything that you consider about our world, because you're not watching our world. You're watching whatever world the creator has come up with.
And then that's where movie critiques come in, because then we start noticing when, if it goes on long enough, we start seeing them do things that are not in the rules that they created. You're like, wait a minute. So
I feel the same way about fan theories.
Yeah.
You know, fans just run wild. They're like, well, and they'll argue something that didn't even occur in the movie. It's like,
I see so many people doing stuff like that on Reddit, and my comment is always, I am so glad they did not let fans write this movie.
yeah.
Right.
Oh, and do you see on Reddit when they do the fan? Like, I wrote a fan script.
Yeah.
You're like, delete.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm sure it sucks. Please move on.
Yeah. Yeah, or maybe it's just that every bird has a job. You know,
Yeah.
storks deliver babies, bald eagles made freedom.
Yep.
Crows bring people back from the dead for
to
revenge.
murder,
It's really basic, Drew.
Crows are the Avengers
Have
of
you
the.
have you never bird watched before?
Parrots let us
Not
talk.
yet, but now I'm gonna absolutely.
Every
Wow, I wish birds would be so much cooler.
yeah.
Ducks are dicks. Like, I mean,
Maybe that should have been the remake. Every bird has a job.
each sequel is a different bird.
Sounds like pigeon.
The owl. The owl is wise.
Yeah.
Man, we do give a lot of responsibility to birds.
Yeah.
Oh my god, Vulture is just some creepy dude with dead bodies.
Yeah.
Like,
Think about it. This could have just as easily a whale could have brought him back. Now you're like, open my mind. This movie sucks. Like, it could have just been like an octopus be like, you know, if I could get on land, I'd be bringing you all back. With all 8 arms, 8 people a day coming back from the dead.
Come with me.
well, octopus, like that's an alien by a lot of people. Saying
Really
it's
is.
not,
Oh,
not really,
absolutely.
not really an aquatic.
I mean, they can
Gotcha.
breathe above and below water.
Yeah.
Like, it's absolutely insane.
We're
So
gonna
I
need-
could see it happening.
We're gonna need more people to be brought back to life by crows to fight off the octopus invasion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They say that they would be easier to domesticate than dogs if they could walk on land.
Yeah, I'm
That's
sure.
crazy.
They just need bones.
I swear, if someone was like, "Here's my pet octopus," I'm like, "I'm leaving."
Yeah. Oh, my God.
No, thank you.
Only in East Nashville.
Right. Like, fry that and bring it to dinner. Otherwise, I don't want to. And even that, no.
I
let's
found
just
him
go get a
behind
big-
Barista Parlor.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, dude, 6-1, our first war score.
Woo!
I just got to say, you two killed it. Amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you. I loved it. We're going to get into the Crow City of Angels next.
Yeah.
There we go.
So get your drink on.
I've heard it only goes uphill from here. I've heard everyone says these movies are just they get better and better and better.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
feel like the next one might be a 2-joint movie.
What's funny, what's really funny is it's like you say, take this positivity because it gets worse, but then you hear how bad the reboot is. Like, maybe cling to it.
Yeah.
Right.
Just a little bit.
Just find the good in the next 3. Just cling
Yeah.
on to one good thing and then get to the reboot.
I do love series and I'm excited to watch. Like I love just watching stories continue. But like as soon as this movie finished, I was like, they didn't need a sequel.
Yeah.
Like right
No,
away.
not
I was
at all.
like, just to see.
Well, Brandon Lee was signed up for 3. He was committed to 3. And then they figured they had to do. That's why they couldn't get Alex back. And
Yeah.
See, I wonder how that would have worked though, because the only reason he came back in this one was because everything happened directly to him.
Mhm.
I don't feel like it's appropriate to turn his character into this random ass vigilante guy who comes back to avenge other people.
Yeah.
Like the only reason sequels make sense, and I haven't seen any of the other ones, so I don't know if this is how it goes, but my guess is each one is a different protagonist and each one has a different reason for coming
Yeah,
back.
exactly.
That is the only way I could justify having
Yeah.
sequels.
The next one is Tintin comes back. And
He goes and mutilates a dead body.
He starts off with a butter knife. He's got
Yeah.
to build his
Yeah.
collection back.
So he kills the little girl, Sarah, right? And then she comes back in the third one to kill all of his family.
Yep.
And then, I think we just...
The Crow, the Tintins.
yeah. And then it's just the trilogy or the series is called Murder.
Yeah. Or maybe Draven has repressed memories, and the Crow brings it back. Remember Chip who stepped on your toe at homecoming in 10th grade? His time is up.
Let's go kill your stepdad.
Remember your uncle who told you were adopted? His time has come.
What a weird threat to give people now. Like, after someone pisses you off, be like, I hope I die, and then a crow brings me back to kill you.
Yeah. That'd be pretty wild.
People would be like, stop talking to me.
Yeah. Because I'm such a pacifist now.
Yeah.
I'm not confrontational. I can't imagine being brought back like, I gotta kill these people or what?
All of them?
Yeah.
Really? That's a lot of people, bro.
I'll just sit back. I'll hire somebody.
I have to kill every person that wronged me.
Upwork freelancer.
Get
I'm
ready.
sure they do.
Awesome. Well, before we close up, where can people see y'all? You're touring, you're out?
Yeah, I got a show at Third Coast Comedy Club on October 4th. Come see me there. And then
Beautiful.
I've got one more on November 7th, right before I go to Orlando for my birthday. So,
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Orlando.
Seth K's Comedy on Instagram, y'all.
Beautiful.
Yeah, best way is to follow me at Drew Davis Comedy on Instagram or Facebook or over your
We're
favorite
very
things.
original over here with
Yeah,
our
we
namings.
nice and easy. Drew
Yeah.
Davis is my name. Comedy's my game.
Yeah.
I'm never saying that
God.
again.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go kill myself.
promise he's good, y'all.
And
He's
hopefully
really good
a
at
crow
comedy.
doesn't.
The
bring
Crow
me
is
back.
never coming back for you,
Yeah.
bro.
So yeah, but I do produce a lot of shows here in Nashville or kind of Nashville adjacent Middle Tennessee area. And one of the ones that's a new one starting in a couple weeks is in Franklin at the Bugonaut Pig. It's a showcase and then an open mic afterwards. And the best thing to do for
What
a
a
new
name.
show, we're calling it Bacon and Bits Comedy. In there.
Oh. You
Yeah.
were built for this, baby.
Absolutely. Well, it's funny because like the last open mic I ran was at a juice bar, and no one believed that I had ever heard of a juice bar. And now I'm at like a barbecue and burger place, and people are like, "That makes sense."
That's
yeah. But it'll be a lot of fun. It's every Thursday, and we really would like an audience, so that would help.
If you're in
So,
Tennessee, come
Yep.
come see us.
We
y'all.
do have a Tennessee contingent in the demographics here. I actually
Yeah.
just looked at them. We do have a pretty big Tennessee base.
Hell yeah.
Okay,
Nice.
so-
That makes sense because you're here.
Grassroots.
Yeah.
Yeah. Our biggest one is Paraguay. No.
That's unfortunate.
Actually, a lot of
I wanted it to
Irish.
be. Oh,
That's
Yeah.
cool.
Ireland, I love you. I will probably be back at some point in the next year or two. So yeah, let's do some comedy while I'm out there.
Yeah, someone
Love it.
invite me to Ireland to do comedy.
Yes.
Game.
Well, awesome. 6-1. Thank you guys so much. It was incredible.
Thank
I'm
you.
Kyle.
I'm Seth.
And I'm Drew.
Love y'all.
See you next time.